When I was a kid growing up, my grandfather used to host the 4th of July at his house every year. And he lived up in Eveleth, Minnesota, which is way up north. Eveleth and Virginia, and that area of Minnesota. He lived in Eveleth, but some of my family is from Virginia, Minnesota as well. And it's about, I think it's like 100 miles south of International Falls, which is right on the border of Minnesota and Canada. But if you were to measure it the way the crow flies, it's about 70 miles from the Canadian border. So it's northern Minnesota. And going to my grandfather's house over the 4th of July was always a good time. The whole family would come together. It was like a family reunion every year. My grandfather used to march in the parade. He was a World War II veteran. He was in the Marines during World War II, and so he was always part of the parade, marching in the color guard, doing something. Right? It was always a special event for our family. A lot of partying, of course. And some of the memories that I have of that time are absolutely just fantastic. Some of the favorite memories that I have as a child. Now, my grandfather also lived on a lake, so we did a lot of boating and fishing and swimming and, fun stuff like that. And he had on his property, he had an old house that he had grown up in, so that old scary spooky house was still there, and he had some old vehicles. He actually had an old Model T or Model A. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but an old frame of one of those vehicles on his property that that you could explore and have fun and look at, and just I don't know. It was a lot of fun when I was growing up, and so I think about my grandpa, and I think about those times that we had at his house during the 4th of July, and they're just some of the fondest memories that I have growing up as a kid. It was just they were wonderful, even as a young adult. Actually, I mean, I spent a ton of time up there when I was a kid. And my folks lived down in the cities, down near Minneapolis, and so at least in the suburbs of Minneapolis, and so that's where we lived. So we weren't up there all the time, but we spent a lot of time up there because both my parents were from that area, and that's where all of their family was, or that's where all of our extended family was. So we spent a lot of time up there. And then, of course, some of the kids settled up there. So there were people up there that, besides my grandpa, who had homes there that we could visit. And one of my aunts and uncles built a log home up there that was absolutely gorgeous. And so we had a lot of memories of that area. And then, as I became a young adult, married my wife, and we had some kids, and we would spend time up there as well with my grandparents. Now, my grandpa died in 1996, and my grandma died shortly thereafter in the following year. They had gotten divorced, actually, though. They divorced before, gosh, I maybe even before I was born. I don't remember them ever being married together. So if I was alive when they were married together, those memories are gone, because the farthest back memories that I have of them is that they were always divorced. And the two of them in a room together, it was hilarious. So they would still come to family events together. And my grandfather was remarried for a short period of time, and then he got divorced again. My grandma never remarried. And my grandma is the one who taught me all of the all of the nastiest jokes. She's the one who, whenever I wanted a new dirty joke, I could go to my grandma. She would tell me the dirty jokes. And my grandpa was the one that I got the singing from. He would sing all the time, and there's this song that he used to sing, and he'd be like making pancakes or something for breakfast, and that was something else about my grandpa. We'd go up there, and he'd go, "Well, I don't normally eat this kind of breakfast, but since you're here," and every single one of the grandkids has that same experience where, "Well, as long as you're here, we'll do this." So he used all of us as an excuse to make big breakfast, or do whatever he was going to do. But it was always because we were there that he was going to do something. But he would do that, and he would sing this, a rinkety, a rinkadoo, a rinkety, rinkety, rinkadoo, and he would go on cooking, and he would do little dances and all kinds of fun stuff. And my grandpa had a pretty good sense of humor as well. But those memories, I mean, they're just, if I ever want to be nostalgic or just feel good, I can go back and think about those memories and think about some of the times that I had with my grandfather and grandmother and that time of my life and that history that we have with Eveleth and Virginia, Minnesota. And being having family from Virginia, Minnesota, one of the jokes that I always got to tell my classmates when they would say something like, "Hey, what'd you do over the weekend?" or "What'd you do over the summer?" or "What'd you do last week?" I could, I went to Virginia. You know, and they wouldn't realize that it was Virginia, Minnesota until I let them in on the joke. But anyway, that was a that was a squirrel. But those memories, right? They are fabulous, fabulous memories that I have of that time of my life, and not having the stress or the anything of adulting, right? This growing up and having being free and out in the woods and the pines and exploring and fishing and swimming and just having a good time. And you're probably wondering, what the heck am I telling you this for? Why am I sharing this part of my life with you? And it's because if you watch the last couple of my vlogs, you'll know that this past weekend was our town's annual festival. And we had not the whole family in, but we had a bunch of the kids. And I say kids, but they're all adults except for our little one who lives at home with us. He's our 8-year-old, but the rest of them are all adults. And one of the adults is living with us right now. She's done with college and getting launched off into her life. And we have another daughter who's home, who's visiting because she's in college, but she's home now for the summer to visit us. And then we have um, eh, other kids, we had the older kids from my first marriage, and some of one of those kids came down, and then one of the kids who lives near us, but he has his own place and his own life and stuff, and lives about an hour away, and he was here, and then we had boyfriends and girlfriends and granddaughter and and then we had and then my one of the daughters who was the one daughter who was here home from college, then invited some of her friends. So we had a bunch of her friends here as well. I mean, it was that type of atmosphere in our home this past weekend that reminded me of that time that I spent with my grandparents up in Eveleth. Those events in our lives that come back to us as really positive and happy times that we had in our life, especially when we're struggling or something has got us down, and you can think about, oh man, remember that time that everybody was home and we went to the parade and we saw this happen, or we went to the fireworks that were so great and we all sat on the blanket, and it's those type of memories that stick with us, right? I mean, we tend to forget some of the bad things that happened to us or some of the memories that made us feel bad, but those memories that make us feel so good and so happy stick with us for so long. And that's what happened this past weekend, is that type of family event of coming together, of eating together and drinking together and having laughs together, and craziness of everybody doing everything and everyone wanting to do everything, and what are we going to do about this and what are we going to do about that, and who's going here and who's going there, and what are we going to eat, who's going to eat what are we going to eat, who's eating that. It just it seems so chaotic and disorganized and things at times, right? It goes in a million different directions all at the same time sometimes. But those are the type of memories that will stick with us for the rest of our lives. And they're happy memories, and they just bring joy when you think about them in the future. And so I'm excited now to be kind of on the other side of those memories. When I started talking today, I started talking about when I was a kid and I think back on those memories. But now I'm on the other side of that. I mean, I'm one of the old duffers in the family, right? And I'm helping to provide the space, provide the time, provide the rides, provide the food, provide whatever it is that we need to host those events and bring everybody together to help create those same kind of memories that I had of my grandfather and grandmother and family when we would go to the same type of events around the 4th of July up north. And we did other times that we spent up there, but the 4th of July ones, those were always the big events, where everybody would try to come, and we try to have as big a family reunion as we could up there. And they were so much fun. And I'm excited that we're having this happen with our family now, and I'm kind of seeing that cycle continue, especially as the kids now they're expanding, and they all are having relationships, and we have a granddaughter in the mix, and it's so much fun to see that cycle happen again. It's the circle of life. I know, but it brings so much joy to my heart to be part of that, and to be able to sustain that cycle and that joy, um, or those joyous events, creating those joyous events. And I'll tell you, with everything else, all the craziness that is happening in the world around us right now, and there are so many things that I could be down about, or that I could complain about, or I could say that I don't agree with, or all these travesties, and there are so many out there. At the same time, I'm so happy and grateful that we get to have moments of joy and happiness like this. And some of these times, we all need some happiness, some smiles, and some joy. And I'm glad that we had that in our family this weekend. And I hope that the same type of situations are happening for everybody who's watching this. And I certainly wish that upon everybody who is watching this, that you can share times there where you have those moments of just pure happiness and joy, and everyone can come together and be together as a family. All right, and that's going to do it for me for today. And I hope that the next time that I see you, I am this happy as well. And so, with that, I will say that I will see you again tomorrow.